good afternoon. Yesterday we finished the stages. We did the last stage in the arena, so they're all there now. We still need to test them all out and make sure they're working, which brings me to what I've started doing today, this morning, and that is, sorting out the spawners basically. So yeah, I sorted out spawning logic. We had just kind of like a few places where, the main job was figuring it out, was understanding it all. And yeah, so I think yesterday I kind of set it up so that instead of it was a mess before and now it's better. It's just when the match starts, we determine what is a spawning point and what isn't. And before we were doing it in some roundabout way that every time I made spawn point versus spawner, that's a big one, but yeah, the enemy spawner and the ally spawner each pointed to spawn points, and that was bad. Instead, we just want the spawn point stored like in the main logic somewhere, so now they're just part of the teams, and we just say if we're spawning basically we should just have those spawn points set up. So we sorted that out, and then it was just kind of understanding, like kind of untangling the spaghetti I'd made before, basically. So stage.names equals ramparts names. So yeah, basically, and I don't like this kind of spaghetti of checking the speed of the character, like which level we're in all the time. It's a bit annoying. But then also we've got this issue of, if a character has 0 speed, their spawn logic is different. If the character speed is 0, we can't spawn them at a spawn point. We have to spawn them in a location with the sort of normal logic. So it is a bit. So if it's ramparts, we check for spawners. And yeah, so it's a bit tricky. So this is why I'm kind of like stuttering a little bit, because it's like, I'm figuring it out. So what we did, one of the things we did that I did just now, is I made an enum for like spawn type, which just has all the different possibilities. And as you can see, the planes is just allies, enemies, and hordes spawn with the normal logic, the sort of default logic, near the player, and the hordes, like, not near the player, but it's the kind of default logic. The ramparts, the units need to find a spawn point that is nearby and spawn there, unless, of course, it's a character with 0 speed. And then the horde should always spawn off-screen either side. And so I've set this up, and we're not quite using it all yet, and actually I may not use it all straight away, just because a lot of this will work. Like, if we're spawning an ally, here is a bit flunkily. So what I want to do is say if character select dot stage dot spawn point dot ally spawn type is equal to spawn type dot around player, then do that. Or if the speed of the character is 0. I don't know if that should be done differently, but so we can use that line instead. That's a bit cleaner, right, than sort of asking, does it have the same description as the planes? This is more readable and obvious. And then, this should be if spawn type is nearby spawn point, then find a nearby spawn point and spawn them from there. But then if it's like, I kind of like, so here's where we could either write spaghetti or sort of use our noggins for a bit. But basically I could just copy paste this and say, look, if, and I did this for the enemies as well, so we are going to have a bit of repeating ourselves. So well, actually, this shouldn't be else. That's messy. It could be a switch case, but I think it's not that simple. So that's what we do in the standard case, and we'll return here. So like if we've done this, then don't do anything else. And this would be if the spawn type is any spawn point. And then, shall we have a quick look at what... So we've got around player, around player, around player, around player, around player, any spawn point, and ramparts nearby spawn point. So those are the only three it can be. So we don't need to make a case for all of the... for other types of other ally spawn types. So in this case, spawner equals team character contain. Where do we have our character? Do we have our team? Or should I just say team 0? Let's just do team 0. Spawner equals team 0 dot spawners. Team 0 will always be the allied team. And yeah, it's going to be a random spawner. So we're not getting a list of nearby spawners. We're getting any spawner that is part of our team. Okay. So that should cover all instances of spawning an ally. So then for the enemy, we've got 2 bits. We've got spawner normal unit, and then we've got spawner pack. So again, at the moment we're asking what's the stage, and the thing is, some of these are, well, actually, this could be something more like if character select dot stage dot spawn type dot enemies. So this is pack. So this would be horde spawn type. Probably should be pack. Let's make it pack. So that's going to cause some issues, and we just want to find horde spawn type and replace it with pack spawn type. I think that's a better word. Better to do it right the first time, but you know, not much harm done. I'm still kind of figuring this out. So ally spawner I think is okay. We don't need to touch that again. But here is where we determine where we're going to spawn our unit, and we have certain levels, right? So, but I don't want to ask what the stage is. I want to ask what the spawn type is. So if character select dot pack spawn type is equal to, and maybe we should do a switch case. But let's just write it like this first, because I find it easier to just use a series of if statements. And we can always convert it to a switch case if appropriate. So if pack spawn type is equal to, and what I'm expecting is bugs when I test this, but and to sort of go through them one by one and kind of find any problems. But I want to try and make it happen without any problems. So if the pack spawn type is spawn type dot basically either side, what did I call it? Off screen either side, then that's ramparts. If it's around player, that's the standard one. And then if spawn type is bridge, dot, so that would be off screen to the right, then do it like that. We could also have kind of like directions and shit. It could be more sophisticated, I suppose, but there's only 8 levels and we're not planning to add too many more, so we can kind of just do it like this. So off screen to the right. Okay, but then we've lost access to this angle. So yeah, I'm not too, like, it's been a while since I made this code basically, and I made it not very well, I don't think. So if it's horizontal stage, see, this is where it gets funky. So what do? We say we get the pack size, so that's that. This doesn't, and then we've got angle. Why can't we get angle? Okay, so I guess angle would be 0 off screen to the right. So 0 is there. It's off to the right. And then, so that's the 360. So you'll have a degree. If it's the ramparts, it's either going to be 0 or 180. Yeah, it randomizes between 0 and 180 if it's spawn either side. If it's a round player, it can be in any space between 0 and 360 is the angle. If it's to the right, it is definitely 0. So we can just set this so that doesn't come up. And then just so it's not a null, or I mean, it would always be set, but I guess it doesn't like to have the possibility of being null. So then we could also have, what other pack spawn types could we have? Pack spawn type, off screen either side, yeah. Off screen to the right, yeah. Around player, around player, around player, off screen to top, and any spawn point. So we need to figure those out. So off screen to top, that is what will work for the Demon Palace. And what we've done is, yeah, okay, interesting. So if it's the Demon Palace, I think it's going to be something like this. It's going to be either 90 or 270. No. It's going to be... yeah, see, that's where... Okay, yeah, this will work, though. So we go angle.value. Okay, and let's... I see, yeah, this uses angle. All right, hold on. If it's off screen to top, angle is 100%. It's either going to be 90 or 180 or 270, and it will be pretty obvious if I've gotten that wrong. Because I don't know which way it goes. Is that 90 or is that 90? I guess I'm going to go with it being 90. Say fam, how's it going? Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, YouTube is, I think, the modern way of like advertising our stuff for like solo content creators. But yeah, how's it going? Cheers for joining. Okay, and then we've got spawn point, and we haven't got that set up at all for the case of any spawn point. And there is no nearby spawn point. It could be one, but at the moment there's not. So in this case, it's almost like we're going to ignore angle. So it's almost like we would undo all of this. Left and right hand guns for world rotation space. I don't know. I guess 90 would be... If 0 is to my right... Yeah, if 0 is to my right looking at the screen, then 90 would... And 180 is that way. Then it's either going to be 90 or 270. So I'll find out pretty quickly. I'll play the Demon Palace level, and if they've spawned below me, I know I've got this number wrong, and then I know which one it should be. Yeah, no, and in Unity, if you're playing in 2D, it considers Y as forwards, and I find that really annoying. I find that unintuitive. I probably because I started in Maya, like my journey into that gizmo is Y is up. Y is not forward. Y is up. That's the way I think of it. Okay, so if it's any spawn point, then it doesn't matter. So we can just, yeah, always to the, I guess we don't need these comments. Random angle. Let's get these comments right. Choose where the pack will spawn. So yeah, left or right side. And I'll just put 4 ramparts in brackets because it's like, yeah, we could just ask specifically which level are you on and do sort of like, are you on this level or this level or this level? In that case, do it like this. But yeah, I think these enums are just make it a bit more readable at the very least. Always right to the bridge. But yeah, thanks for joining Bone Circuit. Good to see you again. So yeah, always right, and I'll just again put to the. And I'll put this one at the top again, just for sort of a bit slightly better readability. Maybe this will never come up. I'll never look at the script again after today. We'll see. X is forward. Nah, that's unacceptable. Is that really how Unreal does it? If that's the case, then do you mean forward as in like Mario forward? Because X is Mario forward, but X can't be. That's horrendous. But yeah, I wish that, because that's how I see it. It's like, even if I'm making a 2D game and it's top down, I want X to be pointing at the camera, basically. Sorry, I want Y to be pointing at the camera. That's how I'm looking down at a screen, which is what this game's like. It's 45 degrees. But then for a 2D game, I probably would make Y. I would be so if I'm making a side scroller, I want to be looking at the side, and so up would be like that. But if I'm top down, I want up to be pointing at me. If you're making a 2D game, and in Unity 2D, so I came across this I think yesterday. I tried to make a circle collider, and I was like, oh yeah, circle collider, and I wonder if this will kind of work on the inverse. And I couldn't actually rotate the circle collider, because the circle collider was like, oh, you're in 2D, it's a circle. Up is Y. Oh, sorry, up is... so it draws it on the Y-axis, basically. And you can't rotate it. So I found that annoying. I tried a number of things to get that to work. In the end, I had to just get a bunch of box colliders and just hope that players never end up in the little corners between the colliders. And if they do, then we can add more. Very hacky, but it works. Okay, so always right for the bridge, and then always to the top for Demon Palace. I don't know if you're still here, Matthew, but did you play Black Myth Wukong? That's what I've been playing recently. I wonder what you thought of that. I'm finding it surprisingly good. I was expecting Soul Slop, Boss Soul Slop, and what I got was something quite charming, and actually the combat's quite deep, and it's really... And the game doesn't teach you this, but it's really satisfying when you do like the see-through thing, where it's like, instead of dodging an enemy attack, you just do the your triangle combo, and then it like goes through the enemy attack, and it's really... And then you just smack them, and they fall back, and then you smack them again. And then it's like, that can turn the tide of a fight, even if you do it once or twice. It's really good. Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's still on sale. It was 38 quid. That's what I got it for on the PlayStation. I don't know if it's on sale on Steam as well. Okay, so for the Demon Palace, and then if it's any spawn point, and again, I'll just put in brackets arena for arena. We're going to kind of ignore all of this logic, so I might want to put this somewhere else, but I kind of want to avoid spaghetti. But yeah, basically, we don't need to do any of this if it's the arena, yeah. Yeah, well, I never actually watched Dragon Ball. I started watching from Z, but I do know a little bit about the Monkey King story, and I think it's cool that, like, I think it's cool. And I keep thinking about how a Western studio would have done the same game. Yeah, it's yeah, the hitboxes. I've never had an issue with hitboxes. That's for sure. Which is impressive for this kind of game. I always have hitbox issues with From Software games. Oh, Crimson Desert, yeah, that's gonna eat your time. I haven't played that yet. But yeah, it's like, I keep thinking about how a Western company would do Black Myth Wukong, and I can just imagine the main character being this kind of snarky person, and then you would find like some female character from somewhere in the mythology, and then make her like the main sidekick, and make her better than the main dude in every way. Make her like a Mary Jane type character from Spider-Man 2. And yeah, it would be full of snarky dialogue, and there'd be some evil plot from the villain, and so on and so on. But I really like the way the game kind of, again, in a sort of, I guess, Souls-inspired way, the story is kind of like floating, and the things that the enemies say before the fights and like the bits of dialogue you have are like, it's not really telling a story, it's just telling character and giving vibes. But yeah, the game is allowed to just be this kind of wacky, like, and yeah, it's got charm, like the little music videos at the end of each chapter. It's really good. Anyway, I'll stop ranting about that. So if it's any spawn point, then basically we want to ignore all of this. But I've got this weird thing where this is coming after that. So then we have to ask again, what stage are you on? Because basically we get our spawn direction and our central position. So our central position is what we end up with. It's a product of spawn position. So now we've got central position, and that's the only thing we need to worry about. And then for the ramparts, I feel like we've already done this. The angle is there, so this shouldn't have to happen. Like, I feel like it must be redundant code. I'm not going to delete it because I need to test it. But I feel like this is redundant. I feel like I've already done this. I've already said, no, like, this is your angle, and then your distance. Where do we get the distance? Pack spawn distance. Yeah, so it goes in that direction. So we get our angle, and then our distance is the pack spawn distance, which is like 30 by default. I think it gets higher as the mission goes on. But then what we can do, this one I felt was useful because I don't actually want them to spawn direct. So this will put the angle up north, and because there's no variation there, it should just put it in the top. But actually, it is actually fairly wide on the Demon Palace. So I want it to be, we can just randomize the X position. So what we should end up with is a position that's here, and then we can randomize it based on the bounds of the level, which is like about 20 wide, but never right on the edge because it's a pack that's spawning. And I think that's going to work, but it's just annoying to have to ask again, what level are we on? So it's a bit spaghettified. Yeah, I think it would be tough. It would be tough to kind of turn Monkey King into a coherent story. They'd turn it into some like ensemble thing. You'd have like some kind of Atreus type character following you around, and maybe you'd have a little, pocket head exposition creature with you at all times. They would butcher it. They would make it like all the modern games. They would make it devoid of personality. And actually, funnily, like with Black Myth Wukong, I was expecting a game devoid of personality. Just kind of like, I thought it was much more. And I think just probably as the budget ballooned and everything, they actually really dug in with the style, and it's just unapologetically like mega Chinese, and I love it. I think that's cool. Rather than a smorgasbord of all cultures, it's like, no, let's just do China. And I really like that. And I like the little bits of philosophy of like, oh yeah, the wolf and the rat, or was it the tiger and the rat? Can you hear their cries? Like, just chill out. And the fact that they have meditation points, so it kind of puts you into that like Zen state, which is really good for games sometimes, of like being Zen, Yeah, I think it, and it's just being unapologetically what they wanted to be. Before engines had fancy interfaces, you had to make your own widget. That's interesting. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have survived in the time back when you had to make your own engine to make a game. I wouldn't have survived then. Knowing what I know now, I'd probably learn it. Like, if that changed, I would probably just learn how to make an engine. But yeah, okay. So this is all easy. Spawn the pack leader, spawn all that, that's fine. And then, yeah, we're just getting... we're sort of spawning them near the sort of central position that we create. I think this code is redundant. We'll see. So yes, pretty simple stuff. The challenge is just finding this. Okay, so what I perhaps should do for the sake of optimization, which is really like, we're just going to be shaving off a few semi-frames here. But we should not do any of this if we're just going to be picking spawn points instead. And I can sort of, I want to create a line there, like we have set up the choose where the pack will spawn, and then we have spawn the pack leader. So like, yeah, just keep those, give those a bit of distance from each other. That's what I want to do. So it's kind of clear we're doing position here. But if it's position, then it's like, we kind of almost don't want them to spawn like that. Oh no, I don't mind the distractions. It's nice to talk to people, especially like I'm going to go to the Isle of Wight in a few days, and I really need a break. So I'm kind of like, I had to really fight to get myself to do some work today. Also because it's kind of tricky what I'm doing. So I should kind of do a, like, don't do any of this. I mean, we can still do it. Create the spaghetti. So if it's arena, then don't do any of this. Or we could just put like, let's put this at the top and then put a return on it. I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it. That should probably be a switch case, but never mind. So we'll put this, so pack size, yeah, that's what we keep. But choose where the pack will spawn. We want to have an up, and then we don't return. Yeah, so if it's any spawn point, otherwise, do it like this. This is going to be, it's not too spaghettified, I don't think. So at least it's sort of still within this realm of like picking a spot. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get by with visual coding, drawing the lines between each other. It's probably good for the brain as well. So if we're I'm just going to say for Demon Palace, randomize. So this is a bit spaghetti, but again, it's not a performance issue, so it's just a me reading it issue. Okay, so if it's any spawn point, I'm just going to put like a to-do here for now, because that is basically done. We just need to figure out what happens if it's any spawn point, which is just the arena at this point. Okay, and then we've got this other part where we're spawning a single enemy. So this is different logic. So we have to have packs and single units spawn, and that's how it's important for the balancing. Two major types of like ways to spawn something. So if it's around player, and let me just remind myself of, what do we have? We have any spawn point, off screen to top. Okay, yeah, so get the angle from the player. And yeah, we've got a fair bit. So it's quite spaghettified. But then, yeah, we get an angle, and we have to make sure that it's no closer than the spawn min distance and no further than the radius. And then the spawn position is that, right? So that's for around player. But we're going to, and then if it's ramparts or war camp, so no, if nearby nearby spawn point. So it will find a spawn point that is within range. If it's the arena, no. If it's any spawn point, and then let me just see that I've got all of those bases covered before I start to like tidy that up. So we've got any spawn point, off screen to top. Yeah, so we need off screen to top. And that might actually affect this angle here. So let's just put these under any spawn. So this would be off screen to top, because the logic is slightly different. I mean, we could maybe like tidy that up a bit. Like we could be using similar logic for the packs as we are for the single enemies, but I think that's more complicated to create than just making this work. So we get an angle around the player. That's good. And the spawn direction, this is black magic to me. But we get our angle. So this should happen outside of here. We get our angle. And let's put that above. Okay. Screen to right, nearby spawn point. Yeah, any spawn point. And that's all set up. And then off screen, and then so this, if it's off screen to right, and so then distances, so yeah, we get our angle, but basically we want to force the angle if it's off screen to right. But actually we don't want it to be a specific angle, but we're not going to use angle. So we get our angle, which will be, I mean, essentially we just want to say, I mean, it's actually really, really simple. Off screen to right would be, so we get spawn character, spawn position. That's the thing that we're getting out of this. So, I mean, essentially, just spawn position equals new factor 3, and that's going to be, if it's off screen to right, the xpos would be player dot gm dot c dot player transform dot position dot x plus spawn min distance. Lovely naming there. Okay, so off to the right. What's spawn radius? 30. Actually, I think that should probably just be 30, and we can figure this out later. So spawn radius. We're saying go way off screen to the right. And then the y-pos. So the z-pos would be 0. So let's just get that out of the way. And so the y-pos would be a random range, and we know that if we're stuck on a plane, like it's not going to stray too far from 0. So the y position, and in fact, of course, it is the y position that will be 0, and the z position that we're affecting here. So we're saying, yeah, it's just going to be a random range between, and we can use the stage level, so math character select dot stage dot max z min, let's do min z to max z, max z. And it's probably, and I think we can use the full range. I don't have to be like min z plus 1 and max z minus 1. And so it's going to be off to the right, and then a random range between the, so his it'll be off to the right, and then the span of the level, so like the span of the bridge or whatever. And then I think stages for the, yeah, okay, yeah. On the ramparts it's using spawn points, nearby spawn points, yeah, and that works. Any spawn point, nearby spawn points. So if it's off screen to the top, it's just a very similar thing. We say, and I'm actually not sure if I want it to be like them spawn near the player like they do in the planes, or like off screen to the top, which will mean this constant movement. We'll have to test them out. And GUI. Yeah, it's kind of black magic to me. So what so Unity bought the thing that just automatically makes the little gizmo at the top right, so you know which way you're looking. Yeah. Yeah, see, I find that the sort of, the visual scripting, like sometimes, like it's not bad to learn the coding. It's quite scary, but it's actually really not that difficult. Like when you look at this, you're like, what the hell is going on? But if you write it yourself, you understand it and you kind of build it out, it's really not that tough. And you can just quite quickly just think about what you want the game to do and just write it, you know. Okay, standard spawn enemies in an area around the player. I mean, these are kind of self-explanatory. But I find that any time I'm struggling to understand the code I've written, the more I just comment it out. Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things I found weird is one thing I saw is how Unity kind of switched to using Text Mesh Pro, and it annoys me that they can't just call that text, but now that it is like embedded into Unity. Okay, and then these are very redundant comments, but I think they help. And then any spawn point. Always commenting just to help me understand what I'm looking at. So everything below here is like, okay, we've got our position, make them there. And if we are using a spawn point, that's where we tell it to play an animation. Which probably shouldn't be a get component, but I don't think it's too much trouble. So yeah, off screen to the top would be player.z plus spawn radius, and that would be the Z position. And then the X position put them up there and then find a random spot to put them up there. Yeah. And we may change this. Don't know what STF fonts is. Right, so I find Unity's UI thing where you can make it work for different things. Like it could be clearer because once you get the hang of it, it's actually really easy. But I did have a few like brain aneurysms trying to figure that out the first couple times. Okay, so any spawn point, that should work. That should work. These should all work. And because it's asking about the level, and so it kind of had me confused because there's basically 3 points. I'm just out of curiosity. So when we could kind of be using the same logic here. Like we don't have to have, yeah. So if it's a spawn point, then I just want to kind of copy this. Yeah. Because essentially what we'd be doing is spawning the pack leader at one of these spawn points and then having all of the other dudes just spawn around them. And that could mean that some of the pieces could like try to spawn outside of the range, in which case what we could do is just kind of really put the spawn points, like at least in the arena, put them like a good chunk away from the actual door. Or we could say get the doors forward and just step forward a bit if in the event that we're spawning a pack. So you can imagine the door here, we spawn the pack leader, and then that spawns a bunch of units around them. Obviously some of them could appear off the level, but if I just said no, spawn a bit in front of the spawn point, so the leader will just appear there and then the other units will spawn around them. We'll see how that works. We'll see how it looks. I'm expecting it to look like they're sort of piling out of the door and for it to be a bit chaotic, but we'll see. I'm a bit worried about how that works, even just in terms of gameplay. Spawning a big pack from a door when the units are so... Like, the packs work really well when they spawn off screen and then march towards the player. That works really well. But having a pack spawn right next to the player's army, it's not... It's going to be different rules, basically. I mean, it might even just favour melee builds, which would kind of make sense for an arena. I don't really want stages to favour any build, but, you know. We might just have to make the arena bigger, or what we could do is, yeah, make the arena considerably bigger and just always make the enemy packs spawn off screen. I mean, we could have like a big hallway for the packs to kind of walk through. That's going to be tricky, though. Because it would have to be like the enemies can walk out here, but we can't walk up there. And not only can we not walk up there, but we have to ignore enemies who are like not actually in the zone yet. Which just is ugh, that's going to be a nightmare. It would be nice if it just works. Let's see. So there's testing to do here. And I'm expecting to find bugs, but I think this should basically do it. When do we... team 0 dot spawners dot clear, and then we find 8 game objects with that tag after the level's been created, and we add them. So if it says ally spawner, then, and otherwise if it's an enemy spawner, it's going to be on another team. And even if that's a friendly team, they would still just be having to come out of a separate spot. We'll see. No, you can't. The only friendly characters will always be in Team 0. But let's say if it was a 3v3, the enemy, both Teams 2 and Team 3 would come out of the enemy spawners. So yeah. Agents divided by 360 gives you a radial division amount to avoid overlaps. I see what you mean. Yeah, so what, like, if we... I don't know what agents divided by 360 means, but, like, you would have... So, like, if we say spawn randomly in a radius around me, you could end up with a bunch of them spawning on the same spot, whereas we'd like them to... that hasn't been a problem. I've seen the way they spawn, and it's kind of fine. And if 2 units spawn next to each other, or, like, on top of each other, they just kind of come apart a bit. I'm okay with it. I think this should work. I need to test it. So sort spawner. So yeah, yeah. This is me just kind of describing what I did this morning. Sort all spawners, and I've got a few of these that are to do with spawning. So yeah, this is to do with the fact that we hadn't set that up. The war camp had no except like it was just spawning them at 0. So that should be fixed. If it's not fixed, we'll re-add the bug. Sort spawning rules for bridge and palace. Yeah. Make standard enemies spawn from tents at the war camp. So yeah, I actually have to set that up. I haven't set up the tents as having a spawn point. And we should also animate that happening. So yeah, little fiddly things. I'd like the tent to go bloop bloop when it spawns a unit. I don't even know if this is the best way. So we've got this war camp level where you've got a bunch of orc tents, and I want the enemies to come out of the tents in this zone. I don't know if that's even a good idea. I want to test it. If it doesn't work, we just simply move to the normal layout, and maybe, like, the war camp is my least favourite level at the moment. It's the most redundant. It makes sense because we've sort of got the level kit for it. But we don't have... yeah, it's going to want to spawn on the actual object. And I think Because that's got the animator on. Yeah, that's going to... I need to rethink this. Spawn point. Because what I'd like to do is create an empty object called spawn point. This would have the tag enemy spawner, and this should come out of here. However, when we try to spawn something, it's going to try and animate. It's going to tell the animator on here to do the spawn. So that's going to be annoying. Yeah, true. If a bunch of them spawn together, that could cause spikes. It tends not to, because like the sort of space that they're in, and we're dealing with like, I think like 50 can spawn at a time. And yeah, I guess we could probably save. Oh god, yeah, you're right. You're right. There is more work for me to do there. So, what do you mean? Tell me the exact thing to write, and I'll write that. No, I'm joking. So it's this bit. Spawn pack where random dot inside unit circle, this is kind of black magic to me, but returns a random point inside the circle. Okay, what circle? The circle with radius of 1 times cluster radius. I see. So we have our random offset, and then spawn position is right. And so then we spawn with that position. So it's this bit that we would need to say these positions should not overlap each other. So what do I write here? Agents divided by 360. So what, we would like go round in a circle and choose random spots here and there. And so what we go, we've got our enemies to spawn. Yeah, so we've got our enemies to spawn. So it would be 360 something something enemies to spawn. No, yeah, so something something number float equals, I'm just equals 360 divided by yeah, I get what you're saying there. Yeah, so we go round the clock and we spawn one at random sort of positions, but they're never at the same clock time. So maybe we don't want to use this random offset. We would rather use this angle thing. So we're using like different bits here, but like, so yeah, while we're going through each enemy. So float pack angle, let's call this, equals 0f. And then pack angle equals 360 divided by enemies to spawn. Except that's an integer. Is that okay? Can I do a float by an integer? Will that divide it successfully by the number of units we have? Even though it's an integer and this is a float, apparently. Okay, so we actually want to use something similar to what we've got here where we're using an angle. So we get our angle, and then we want to do something similar to this. Yeah. And then that should put us, so that should give us the angle, plus equals 360 divided by enemies to spawn. So it started 0, and if we've got 10 enemies, then that'll be go up to 36, and then it will go up to 72, and so on. And so we've got our angle. This is using a different thing. So I'm going to go I'm just going to kind of copy these because this is what we get. So we use our angle, and this is black magic to me, but spawn direction, yeah. So it's like using the angle to get a position I find tricky. So yeah, brain is just short-circuiting right now. So we got an angle, and then we use that. Let's just copy this, and it's going to cause errors, of course, but and we don't want these. We don't need these. So we go spawn direction, and then so this would go down here. This is going to be spaghetti as hell, but we can kind of make it work and then tidy it up once we understand it. So that let's just call this pack spawn direction. And that will be pack spawn distance, although we don't need that number anymore. We just want pack spawn direction, and then yeah, okay, times the distance, and that would be cluster radius, I think. This is going to be fun to see, to experiment with. Like that. And then we spawn character. Oh yeah, so then, and then that would be there. To round off the value, so we would say equals mathf.round. And I think round for a float, yeah, returns to the nearest integer, yeah. So it'll be between 1 and 360. Yeah, that makes sense. Or is it a trouble to do that rounding? I don't know. So then we get our angle, and then bippity boppity boo, and then our position is that plus that, and then times the cluster radius. And then if we change the cluster radius, okay, yeah, that could make us more performant. Yeah. I don't actually have, so I want to create a script to just spawn a pack for me. So I would go like player controller. And we'll just use, I need to like do more of these, but let's just, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, we're using these numbers. If I round to 2, it should look weird. Should it look weird? I don't know. What should I do? Round to int, you're saying? So we do mathf.round to int. Or because I think one gives us a float and the other one gives like the actual output number is a float. So where did I put that? Mathf round, yeah, round, just go with the full round to int. And what I could go, I don't know how to round to nearest 2, nearest multiple of 2. Yeah, okay, let me just make this thing so like we've got all of our buttons here, and this is basically where I can just write bits of code that go into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just to give me bits. So these two can stay. Yeah, we don't need take damage for the moment. I just want one to make pack. So enemy spawn gm dot c dot enemy spawner. Nice. Why is it a list? Do I even use that? Because I thought we only had one enemy spawner. I thought we only had one enemy spawner. Wait, so if I go round to int, do I have more? No, apparently I only have one version of this. Add a parameter to end2. Yeah, I don't know how. Enemy spawners dot spawn. So wait, why do we have more than one enemy spawner? I think that's because we might have, if we had other enemies, like, so if you have more than one faction, so I've set it up ahead of time to have more than one faction, but I still think we only need one spawner, because we can just run, we could just have that spawner run more than one coroutine at the same time. So I don't know. So now I'm trying to remember, like, I should only have one object called enemy spawner. Ally spawners, there's several of them, because it works with completely different rules, basically. Like, it just lets the counter run down and then spawns a unit, whereas the enemy spawner is like... Why would we have more than one? Enemy spawner prefab. What? We should only have one enemy spawner. Okay, I'm not going to mess with... I'm tempted to mess with that, but I don't want to mess with that right now. Let's just get this to work, and then we can mess with that. So, yeah, I want to try that. Okay, so we would just be like enemy spawners 0 dot start coroutine, and then all of that again. Spawn pack, and we'll say, where do we store the packs? How do we do that? I see. So we should be able to say, again, pack. I think we want pack 2. And give me like 50. And let's see if that works. I mean, otherwise we can always rush it. We can always just play and like wait till a pack appears. But this should help to actually just spawn a pack right away and just check that that's all working. Okay, so that's one thing. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that will make the game more performant. Just tell them never to never try to spawn, even though the physics engine means that if you spawn things on the same place, it will push them apart. Yeah, this should avoid some potentially nasty frame drops. If every spawner has a control spawn node where the object is instantiated from. You can offset distance and rotate it as a child. Well, so we would have like an object that's like spawning and we're just like rotating this thing around and moving the thing and just like dropping and just spawning at that position while that position moves wildly. Yeah, that would work. I mean, I think for now, I think this should probably work. And yeah, I can press 5 to spawn a pack, although it might be empty at this point. So I might have to just manually... pack 2 dot enemies dot add, and what do we want? So enemies is a list of strings, lovely, so we can just add goblin. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would work. I mean, if what we have works and it's performant, you know, I'm probably not going to change it. But yeah, that does make me think like it wouldn't actually be too... Because I got some help with Grok for this, and I know I shouldn't have, and I probably could have done it myself. I was just like experimenting with... When I started this project, I was experimenting with AI. And while it was really cool at the beginning, and it was impressive and fun and interesting, and kind of saved me space to focus on design, I think the technical debt has been... Like, I've lost time overall by using AI to help me code for some of these things. But anyway, so the other thing I want to sort out... Yeah. Makes me think of, like... Yeah, like a crane. I mean, it makes me think of, like, something laying eggs for some reason. Okay. So the other thing I want to do is create like a thing called spawn point. So this just, and all this has, it's just very simple. Public, yeah, it's used to transform, and what do we call this? Okay, I just want to call it spawn point, spawn position, or spawn transform, and then public animator. So that whenever we are getting one of these spawn points, and then, so yeah, we should be able to like easily find the bits that we need to, find the bits of code we need to change by saying that spawn, let's call this spawn points, and make it a list of spawn points. Okay, and that should put a bit of red, that should highlight all the bits of code that I'm going to need to change. So so yeah, spawn points. And then here it's going to have to be add obj dot get component spawn point. Yeah. So add spawn points. Yeah, crane sounds good. Okay, we should have more errors popping up. So, but this will be spawn points, not transforms, for each spawn point. And this would also have to be distance equals no. spawn point dot spawn transform dot position. Whoa! I seem to have lost internet for a second there, but it seems to be back up now. So I don't know what happened. Maybe, yeah, we just tried to download the entire internet. Yeah. Yeah, I think I just lost internet for a bit. It came back. Okay, so... Yeah, and sadly we've got a bit of spaghetti here, but it shouldn't be too bad. So equals that. And then we don't need to spawner dot, and then we don't need to do a get component here, which will be nice. Dot animator. Yeah, let's just call it that. This is fine. Terrible naming, but yeah, this code could definitely be tidier. Because we don't need, like, once we've got our spawner, we can just, but yeah, I'll just leave it like this for now. One thing at a time. And then spawn position is that. No, spawner dot spawn transform dot position. That's where you go. And then we spawn the character in that position. Okay. Yeah. Spawn character. So, I mean, basically, we don't need this 3 lines of code twice because it's the same. But I guess just for the I'm part of me wants to clean up that code. The other part of me wants to move on. I'm going to listen to the part that wants to move on. So enemy spawner. We should have some errors here. There we go. Team dot spawn points, and actually this should be spawn point. So we're kind of doing the same thing here. Is apologies for, but we do need to get these bits in, and then maybe we can marry up these bits of code so we're not repeating ourselves right before we never open it again, and it doesn't matter. But I'm kind of dealing with the copy pasting here because we should have a code which is get spawn points with certain criteria, but for now and then so spawner equals possible spawners. What's wrong with this? Spawner we just need to go straight to the animator. And then the position is actually so this all stays the same. And this just changes because we're not looking at the ones that are in range. We're just going team.spawn points. And that should work. Pretty confident with that. Any spawn point. Yeah, so we could easily just have make spawn point, and that would handle all of these lines of code. So we've got like 4 instances or more of that, but you know, it's fine. Okay, and then I think when we were doing the spawn enemy, yeah, so this is to do. So in this case, central position, we kind of want to just take this again. So we'll say this is always going to be yeah, any spawn point. We don't have nearby spawn point for hordes for packs, so we don't need that. So essentially I'm just going to copy and paste this, and we're going to say spawner equals, yeah, the spawn points. What do we call that? So actually this would want to come after. Because so that should work. And then for these, like, we could actually like have this much easier. We could just have it the same as we had it elsewhere. But I think for now that we've done this, I kind of just need to test it and see what's working and what's not. Because yeah, this could easily be, like, for example, off screen to the right would be basically that. It would be that plus pack. What do we call it? The pack spawn distance. Yeah, why can't I get that? Why couldn't I find that? Pack spawn distance. And it'll be like +5 and then maxi -5. That's actually like better, because then we don't need to worry about the angle, and that would actually be cleaner. But like I'm kind of I kind of just want to move on. That's how we could do it, and that will probably be easier to read and make more sense, but I'll just leave that for now. Okay, so the next thing is to test all of that. So make standard, oh yeah, so we're doing the tents, And we need to go through all of our spawn points and set them up like this. So we've got our spawn point, and yeah, we have compile errors. So there's probably points where, yeah, team.spawn points like this. And then that would be dot spawn transform dot position like that. Anything else? Okay, and this looks like black magic that I don't understand, so I think that's fine. So then our tent has our spawn transform. Let's name it that. And it could actually even be the same object, and our animator is actually the same object, but we don't have the animation on yet. Can I? And now I actually do want to try and use, because we've got this for so if we look at ramparts, stone short wall. This has a spawn point. And this, so before it was on the ladder, and we haven't actually, yeah. So it's this is what's tagged as an enemy spawner. It is the ladder. Okay, yeah, it is the spawn point that is the transform, and it is the animator on the ladder that is the animator. So it just makes this squidge a little bit. And I want to try and copy that. And then this one is, so yeah, this should have spawn point. This should be tagged as an ally spawner. The position is just the same. And actually the animator is also just the same. Okay. And then if I go over to, and that's the only other, these are our only spawn points. And we've got this new one, the tent. And what did I just do? What did I paste? There we go, the animator, yeah. So we have our transform and we have our animator, but we don't actually have an animator. So can I paste? Okay. So does that mean, unfortunately it completely messes with the scale. Yeah. Yeah, so like I can just kind of launch the, I mean that's kind of what I'm going to do. I can, but yeah, I can launch the zone that has a bunch of different spawn points and yeah, test it out and test that it's working. I think the easiest thing. So yeah, I wanted to try and get the animator to just do the same animation as the ladder, but let's just create a new one. So new animation, assets, animations. I'm just going to put it in the root folder. I don't care. Tent spawn, and it's just a very simple. What do? We go we go down. We go like, yeah, let's go 4 and then 6. And then up to 6. And then 4. And then rest back at 5, 5. How does that look? Yeah, we can. I mean, it's just a little animation, like something's going to pop out. Let's just pop this over here so we can kind of see it. Yeah, I'll do for now. Don't loop that. And actually, this animation needs to be called spawn, because we're saying animator.play spawn. That should work. Okay. So then on that prefab, we can set the animator as also being the game object. And then we kind of need to do that for the other tents. I'm just going to delete the other two tents because there's more that's different now than there is similar. Yeah, so this one, just need to change this to tent 2. Just got a little bit of a fire decal on it. And this one to tent 3. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point as well. Like, I mean, the way I've always coded things, like, and this isn't a good thing. The way I've often coded things is that like everything's kind of dependent on each other, and so that means for me, like, the best way to test these things is to just press play altogether, because I had like everything set up in the GM, right? So it was difficult for me to test anything without just like starting the game, because otherwise so much wouldn't work. Whereas I am realizing more and more now that I do want my code to be a little bit more modular. So yeah, like instead of having like pausing or yeah, like you mentioned, making a little slider for time, like instead of, yeah, like I should have more of these things that like I can take something out, I can put it in easier, for sure, yeah. I can probably still do that for this game, but with such late days, I mean, we'll see as we enter into the more testing phase. You know, like I have done some clever things. I'll just point just to sort of save my ego a bit. Weapons. We've got some really cool, or is it on the characters that we did it? We haven't done it for weapons yet, but characters has a bunch of really clever constants that basically keeps everything balanced. Hey, Monsieur Ojete. Thanks for joining. How you feeling? You feeling better? Yeah, it's like we have different multipliers. So like a ranged unit has less HP as a result of being ranged, but how much less HP should it have? And we can just mess with that rather than having to go through and change each one. So there are I know you're not. It's that's purely me sort of thinking like, shit, could I have been cleverer and saved myself tons of time? And on a lot of cases, yes, I could have been. And on some cases, I was clever and I did save time. But yeah, it always feels bad when you're like, shit, yeah, if I had done it like this from the beginning, I could have saved myself hours and hours and hours. That's always a bad feeling. But yeah, it's not. That's just me being hard on myself. Okay, so that should work. And what we need to do now, which would be quite fun, is testing all the levels basically, and we've got our little thing to spawn a group, but I'm gonna say this is done. Tents should all be the same size. I did that. Add dark bushes to map. Okay, this is just a very minor one, low hanging fruit that we can knock off of the list, where we actually have dark bushes that we could add to the map here. Except that we haven't actually got the tiny versions of these bushes. I mean, we could just... How does this look in here? Does it look wacky? No, I think it kind of looks alright. It gives it some texture. Obviously not when it's on the wrong plane. I've actually got the thing rather than the sprite render inside. Yeah, so it's kind of like we could have some bushes here. I made dark forest bushes. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and add that. So let's do that. So that's going to be a bit of drawing, I think. We will open up map bushes, sprites map. It's either map bushes or just bushes. Map bush, not even plural. Okay, and then we'll have a new one. So did I haven't made this already, have I? Map undead biome. Yeah, so we've got to have so I'll just save this as map let's just call this map dark bush. I guess let's go with plural. I mean, whether you go with plural or singular, make it the same each time, and I'm terrible at doing that. I'm always changing it. So again, map dark bushes, here we go. And map dark bushes, and now I can just remind myself, what did I do for the stage version? So we go sprites, stages, dark forest, dark bush, and it's the same thing but a different color, which and one of them is like this type. And I wasn't sure whether that was working or not. And actually, I wonder if the bushes would be a different color, right? Like they ought not to be the same color as the grass, right? Nice, well done. Good news. Well, we've got to find the balance of dwelling on our... We have to find the balance of punishing ourselves. I mean, we have to game design for ourselves, don't we? We have to be like, you died, you failed, try again, and spend 2 minutes running to the boss. Versus, look, you did pretty well, just go to sleep, and you'll come back tomorrow, and you'll find it easier, you know? And yeah, we have to be a little bit harsh with ourselves. But yeah, not too harsh. Always, all things in balance. Okay, so... when I'm talking about bushes, I kind of had the mistaken idea that we would want the bush to be the same color palette as the ground, when actually a bush in this universe might be a fairly universal thing. I don't know much about. So like when we're talking about adding bushes to this zone, we might actually just be thinking of just using the same bush. And then here in scenery... dark forest, we're using these dark bushes, whereas maybe we should just be using normal bushes. And then I experimented with this one, and it's not incredible, but you know, it's just a simple thing that looks like a broken up bush. I hadn't actually really strongly felt, so this is a very simple one that's taken me a long time, but yeah, I want to think about this. Do we need bushes here? So what if we did take... so here's one of each. Take these and put them in here. Do they fit? Does it make sense to have them here? It does kind of add a bit of texture. Why would the... thank you. Why would the grass texture... like, what color are bushes? I'm just looking out my window right now, like... just can see some trees and stuff. What color are bushes? Would the bush in this area, because the grass is a different color, and in here as well, would the bushes look different? We have the same trees, but the undead area has different trees. So would the bushes actually be different? Is what I'm thinking, right? That's like a sort of geography, horticulture question. So it's another thing that as a game developer, or any kind of artist really, you have to learn. It's good to learn about a bunch of crap. So the note was that I could make this area feel a bit more full by having dark bushes, since dark bushes exist in the stage map. So the outcome would be that if this is a yes, then we just want to take a bunch of these bushes and kind of paste them along here. And just knock these throughout. If they're a different colour, then they'd be the different colour ones, but then they'd be like nigh invisible. So what if... so this should just be... so in that case... like, these bushes are silly. I was just being silly and kind of added the wrong colour. And then I think I did the same thing with the war camp bushes. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just the sort of visual side of things. So it's like, we want bushes, because that's just... easier to like we want bushes. That's an easy one, right? And then the question is, do we want different bushes for different biomes? I actually think this green doesn't look too bad against that backdrop. Or would we expect to see, because the trees are a bit different here, that the bushes should be a bit different? And I guess if I was a real pro artist, I wouldn't just draw a random bush shape. I'd be like, or not pro artist, but someone who kind of cares about nature a bit more. I'd be like thinking about the different kinds of bushes that we have. I mean, if I'm thinking of like English countryside, then yeah, I guess you just got like the green kind of matches the grass around it, right? Or does it? I'm crap with colour theory as well. I wasn't actually ever really looking at this scene and being like, there's not enough bushes. But my resolve right now is to say, let's keep that little scratchily one. So I'm just going to do a hacky fix to this. So we go into scenes, title screen, stuff, scenery, and then we have our dark bushes. Oh, we haven't got all of these. Oh, because I deleted them. We've got our dark bushes. Except I'm just going to keep that one. So we're actually going to have 4, and we're going to point. We're going to point to the normal bushes. But we're going to keep dark bush 1 because that's the sort of broken bush, right? And we're going to have like fewer of them. I think that's the way to do it. And then, do we have other bushes? Did I make different bushes for like the war camp? I hope not. Yeah, so that's the same problem. So when I made the bush for this area, I kind of made it match the floor color, but I think we shouldn't use war camp bushes. So let's go scenery, war camp. No, let's just use normal bushes. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think this game requires me to sort of think of a biome as a like, I don't think I need to make a class for a biome in this. That's it. We're not at that level of detail because the maps are just the maps, you know. So we've got yeah, I don't think we need that level of detail. Like, I wouldn't, a biome is not defined anywhere in the code. It's just defined in my head, and I'm just thinking we have these biomes here. We've got evil biome, normal biome, foresty biome, which isn't used in any of these stages, and then we've got scorched, like, used battleground biome, and we've got orc controlled biome. Yeah, exactly. Each stage is its own biome, so there's never like any overlap. And it, like, a stage has a list of scenery, and an area on the map has a list of scenery in a way. So yeah, no, as she said, each stage is basically its own biome. And like, we could add frosty mountains, but we're not gonna. But that would be a nice, like, it's like, this is where the story takes place. Humans living peacefully here. Orcs invade. The prince of the humans realizes that the orcs are trying to kill them all, so he tries to stop them against the wishes of his father, the king, who wants to pay them off. So they fight, and you can see the orcs are taking territory, chopping trees, burning villages, and they're getting closer to actually getting to this town of Ironwell. This was once a town as well. Little coastal town. And then in order to get the power, so this is going to sound very familiar, in order to get the power to defeat the orcs, the humans are going to come down and raise the dead to fight alongside them, except not all the humans are going to be in favour of that, so it's just going to be the leader Randar who does that. And so then we end up with three factions: the humans, the undead, and the orcs. And they all then, after the big clash in the undead area, they clash here. And during this clash, we're going to have that big moment, and I'd love for it to happen like live in the game. That scene, I think it's the beginning of... No, it's the beginning of Warcraft 3. Blacksmith 2 is coming. It's not going to be called Blacksmith 2, though. That's a different... That's yeah. This is actually Ironwell. This is the location of Blacksmith. But, like, in a whole different, like, timeline, basically. But... I'm not going to mention it, but if you want to get into the lore of this kind of fantasy world I'm making, we lose this battle. The humans lose this. The orcs are going to take over. The undead are going to be defeated. The humans are going to be defeated, and we're going to be left with a sort of Albion that is hollowed out, and that's where Blacksmith 2 is going to begin. So that should be fun. But yeah, here we've got so we're not going to leave this area. It'd be fun to do pirate ships. It would be fun to do like Far East lands. It would be fun to do mountains, underground caves, things like that. But we're just going to stick with where this story takes place. And these are the... and there's also... So yeah, I was going to do the scene from the beginning of Warcraft 3 where you're doing a big three-way fight with the humans, orcs, and undead all fighting each other. And then without warning... in Warcraft 3 it's meteors raining from the sky. I'm thinking more like things come out of the ground and then demons start spawning. And the idea is this whole thing was orchestrated by the demons to give the demons power. So their fortress is going to like raise out of the ground, and in the sort of nexus, in the sort of point between these three major factions. And then the demons are going to be the real enemy, and then they're all going to work together to fight the demons. The orcs are going to be like, "Look, we're leaving, but we'll be back," and the undead are going to be like, "We're going back to sleep. Don't ever revive us again." And they all lived happily ever after, except for, like I said, off-screen, never mentioned, like this all goes to hell, and then we're going to come back to a broken England, a broken Albion for Blacksmith, Albion Reforged. So yeah, bit of lore there. Okay, so question is, should we add bushes? Back to the main point. Should we add bushes here? Yeah, let's add a few. But we can give them a kind of like lower density maybe. We do like to have bushes near the road. That's a thing. Australians know all about the bush, right? That's what you call the bit where nobody goes. Or the Aboriginals are, right? Or used to be. The bush. And let's take the other types. So that's one type, two types, and then we've got the kind of... got single bump, double bump. So yeah, let's do double bump. Get a few of these around. And yeah, I think it does just kind of make the scene a bit more... just adds yet more texture and variety to this scene, I think, to the map scene as a whole. And yeah, we expect to see normal bushes, I guess. And we can do the same for up here. Beyond the black stump. Is that an Australian expression that I haven't heard? So what happens if we put a normal bush here? Yeah, I think that colour works. So yeah, let's just have a few. Not many, but a few. And then so we can say in the Orc War Camp, bushes are like a third of what we would expect to see. So that's double bump, single bump. Just add in a few around here just so it doesn't feel neglected. And triple bump. We'll just have a couple triple bump ones. There we go. Bushes. Bushes. And should I make a tiny version of the spiky bush? I don't think we need that. I don't think that's going to do anything. So, bam. Get random weapon is like, that might be a tomorrow thing. Units not immediately getting armor. Yeah, that's a tomorrow thing. Enemies should spawn further away on the plains. I already kind of did that, but we'll experiment with that more. Basically, they start at wanting to spawn like 5 units away from the player. And then as the match goes on, the standard units spawn further and further away. I think I just changed it. So it goes from 5 to 20, I think. We're just going to go from 10 to... Yeah, we start at 10. And we... I think, yeah, I can show you. So we have the coroutine that is like standardized for all factions that you're fighting against. So spawn's distance starts at 5. Because what you don't want is at the beginning of the game, you want enemies to be spawning like right next to you. Because otherwise you have to walk for a bit. So that is the default state. But then at minute 1, when we've got a few units, we should start spawning them further away. And then by the time we're at minute 5, we should have our blob or, you know, a nice big army there. And at that point, enemy units should spawn a good distance away. And hopefully that all works. And that's for every faction. If you want to see how this works, each faction has its own like setup for how we create enemies. And obviously we're not spawning them one by one. We're creating lists, common lists that spawn often, rare lists that spawn less often, and so on. And yeah, it's a bit of a puzzle to get it right. And actually there's some of these things... Like the spawn intervals are probably universal. So what I can do is make the faction specific enemies like anything that's happening in all 4 of these can probably be put into its own script. And a lot of that is the case. And it's just like in case there are some units, like for example, the chain lightning dudes, the zappers, they can be quite powerful, and we want to be careful about how we introduce them into a game, because if we add them at the wrong time, like they can be quite devastating when lumped together. So when we do add, like if we were to say add zappers to a team, if it's only like goblin melees and zappers, then half of the units are going to be zappers, and 10 zappers all at once can absolutely ruin your army before it has a chance to do anything. So have to be careful about how we kind of add to these lists. But a lot of it is universal. Right, let's continue. Vengeful Mana. So that's a minor bug. Yeah, I do need to have a look at this, but since I've changed the spawning logic, that might not come up. This is a very simple one. Artifact outcome sprite not covered by tool. Okay, so that's another simple one. Player armor doesn't fully regenerate. Yeah, these are bugs. So shadows on tents and tree stumps. Yeah. So like, I need to make sure the shadow looks right on some of the objects where it doesn't, and it's just a matter of like squashing them up a bit. So we've got this very hacky shadow. So we go stages, war camp, and if we go tree stump, and so you can see the shadow there. And so if that's at -30, we can see that it looks a little bit off. It should be at... Okay, yeah. That's a bit dodgy. And then so if this rotates from -30 to 1, then from this angle, we should never see the lines, basically. So if this goes to 30, you can see that this is poking out a little bit there. So what we can do is push them back a little bit. And then when it rotates between 30 and -30, you can't really see. And then if the camera's peaking a bit like that, what we don't want to see is the edges, you know, we want this to work. And then there's other things we can do. We can like shrink it a bit. Yeah, 1053. So like, I don't think this one needs the double shadow. I don't think tree stumps need a double shadow. The double shadow was just for like the trees, like the bigger objects. And if we're getting rid of the double shadow, okay, we already did for tree stump too. Interesting. The position should be here. That looks like it's going to work. Because, yeah, if it goes too far, if it's too close, so you can see we have to move the Z position so that it never appears that the shadow, like, so the shadow always looks correct no matter what angle it's at. And we can always squash it as well if it ever does become an issue. You see the way that works. And so if the shadow is, yeah, so that's 0.5. Let me just copy, actually, yeah, let's copy that. This shadow should look like this. This shadow should look like this. Yeah, that works. Yeah, the war camp. I think we did do a slightly different color for these, but yeah, let's see. We can always get those back if we want them. Okay. Test hordes in arena. Well, we need to test all of the levels, and it's actually a good opportunity just to get a bit of like actual testing data. So while I can make, so that's kind of one of the reasons I'm making more excuses. One of the reasons that I didn't do like museums and gyms and stuff is because often I do actually need to test it in the full context. And so I kind of just stack that up. It's like, okay, I need to test if this thing is functioning, but also I need to like test the game in general because, you know, the more data I have there, the better. So it kind of just ends up being quite efficient just to do a full test each time. Okay, I might as well do this just for the placeholder, and then we can improve that. But that's happening in the game. Test hordes and arena. That's, we can just fold that in. No shadow movement in Demon Palace. That should be really easy to do. I considered this and decided against it. So that was just, should I make shadows little circles below the object rather than this angled thing? And the angled thing is better, just slightly. Sort shadows on tents and tree stumps. So yeah, on the tent, we can actually see, like, obviously from this angle, you can see that that shadow definitely isn't working right. And if we bring it too close, then that pokes out under. So one of the things, one of the tools that we have is, if we can make this, so that's at 30. Position should be like that. Set minus 30. And at 30. 30, it's like, okay. It's kind of what we expect the shadow to look like. And then if they're both at minus 30, then it's just a matter of like, will the player see that bit and be like, oh, that's not right. But then how can we fix that? This shadow system doesn't work well for... Wait, the main scene becomes corrupted? You mean like in a... like data sense? Or like a... or like a sort of like scope creep sense? So yeah, these shadows. So we kind of want those shadows to be in the same position. Can I just do it like this? Yeah. Just to get the exact same transforms, and I think that should work. And again, I'll make a note of that if it's not working, and I can remove this from the list for now. We have looked at it and addressed it. The tree stump. It does feel a bit off-center. Why is it off? Is that just where the pivot of the tree stump is. I should change that then. So yeah, it's just not in the center. Oh god, that sounds horrible. I mean, I think I would go to a backup in that case. Oof, that's never happened to me yet, but yeah, it would be better to build out of modules and things. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is what our main game scene looks like. So let's see how. So we would have to redo the camera. We would have to set this up again. We would have to set up all of our UIs again. So probably I should just like prefab all of these, right? Just so if I ever needed to put them back together, I can just. We have UI. God, we've got quite a few of these. But yeah, should we just do that? Since you've made me paranoid about the possibility of this happening, let's just make prefabs, and at least we'll get something close to what it was. Yeah, the rest of these are just transforms, empty transforms. Okay. Oof. Yeah, that would suck. Well, there you go. If I lose this scene, it will be a bit of a pain, but not too bad. Okay. Vengeful Mana Gem has 150% chance, so that is down to, I think, yeah, artifacts. But let's see what else we can do. So no shadow movement in Demon Palace. That should be easy. We find our candelabra. Stages, Demon Palace, candelabra, and this should not be marked as a shadow, and therefore it will not run with the shadow logic and will just stay where it is. Oh, but that would have to apply to the units too. So we could do something gnarly. So what do we have? We have a central object called Shadow Mover. And I can say, well, let's do it here. Shadow Mover. So gm.c.shadowmover, yeah. Dot enabled equals false. And then hopefully it does, like, that won't have gotten a chance to modify each of the shadows. No, what we'll do, so Shadow Mover, yeah, Shadow Mover's here. So I could have like a don't do anything if it's on. And we could do a public void update shadows. Okay, interesting. Can't remember the exact logic behind this, but basically I just want to say, like, yeah, so we add units to the shadows. Like, yeah, we just don't want to do any of this, but we want to say, in fact, you know what, I'm just going to undo this because I don't think that's necessary. Just no changes here. When we make the Demon Palace, we go shadow mover dot enabled equals false, and then we go gm.c. How do we want to do it? So the shadow, Yeah, 45, 0, 0. Is it always going to be 45? Yeah, I guess it would be. So and it's that. Except it would be 0. So we just turn off the shadow mover, and then just any shadows that the shadow mover has collected, just default them. So there's no shadows in the shadows don't move in the Demon Palace. Why? Because we're indoors. We don't. I'm quite proud of this actually. So as time passes, the shadows move from one side to the other, and then in the end, after we're at midday, the sun gets more and more like red orange to sort of simulate like sunset. So that's why we have all this weirdness with shadows. But in the Demon Palace, I think we shouldn't have any of that. The shadows shouldn't move. They should just be static. It was on the notes. We did it, and it's done. And then we've got a couple bugs here, which I think I'm going to leave for tomorrow. Because, yeah, we got... Today, this week has just been about stages. And so now I've got a nice little list of bugs. There's more I can do. We can start each level and just kind of like take a picture of it with the scenery generated. So again, yeah, probably would be nice to have like a little script, like a little scene where I can just easily generate each map. But I am just gonna do it in game. And so I'm gonna go to scenes, title screen, and we press play, and we go to the planes, and we try and find a sort of representative spot of the planes, take a picture of that, and then that will be the sprite for the planes. So not I don't know if this is the most efficient or inefficient way to do it, but yeah, thanks for joining, really appreciate it. I mean, yeah, I've got a little bit more in me, I think. God, I think it does look much better with the solid grass texture. Okay, so let's just find... I guess we should do it from the camera. But we can actually move the camera. And again, this isn't going to be final, so I'm not going to be too precious about it. But basically, I just want to find... Well, you think there's not that many trees. Maybe there should be more trees. It's actually harder than I thought to just find like a representative spot. We kind of want some trees, but not. Maybe it will just be quicker for me to make a stage, just to arrange it manually. But like that's our image for the planes. I'm not really satisfied with that. I think the cloud movers. I also need to think about the ratio, but I think it's kind of like I mean, I think square would be good. And if we're just doing square, it could just be like literally find any tree with some grass tufts next to it. And that's our square. Or should that be our square? So this is something I need to think about, I guess. I've forgotten the thing for... There we go. Like that? Is that our square? This is more complicated than I thought it would be. But yeah, so I need to do that. Take screenshots of each stage. And it's funnily... I mean, I could just take one without a tree. So if I just said, look, here's your screenshot for the planes. And I can conform it to a square. There you go, planes. I'm being weirdly like specific with this, but okay, yeah, plains, green grass, a couple bushes visible, maybe a stone, and that is plains. Okay, so I'm going to do that off stream, I think, because that's a bit boring. And yeah, a few little bugs, but today what we've achieved is finishing what we were doing for the levels, and of course we'll do some testing and fixing, but oh god, had more scenes than the game. Jesus. Oh, what? So people have been making scenes to show off mechanics of the game, and there were more of those than games. I mean, that kind of makes sense, because if you're just doing something for like a one-off social show-off thing, you'll just make a scene, and you won't get rid of the old ones that you don't need anymore. Maybe like you'd be less tidy with it. Okay, yeah. So that's like something I can do with podcast on or something. Get random weapon. Why is vengeful mana like that? Artifacts. So vengeful. And let me see, we have to locate vengeful and look at the chance multiplier. So yeah, vengeful doesn't happen very often. And then mana gem. So the gem, yeah, so these need to be not times 5, but divided by 5. So that's just a silly mistake I made. Because these are less likely to happen. A heal, or no, a chicken is much more powerful than a single heal. So, but by 5, and I had it multiplied by 5, it should be divided by 5. We reduce the chance by 5. Multiplied by 5. Okay. So that should deal with that. We'll see if we get any more wacky chances when we generate artifacts. Get random weapon. That's just going to be really simple. I just need to move my head into completely different bits of code. Units not immediately getting armor. Yeah, I thought I'd done that, but I guess we'll have to see why that's not working. On bridge, I'm going to delete this and wait till I see it again, because we have changed the logic there. And that's a lot of that is going to come down to, like, we'll try the bridge, because before the bridge had sort of similar single enemy spawning logic as the planes, where they just spawn around you, but I've changed it. I do actually want all of the enemies on the bridge to be off screen to the right, so that there's this constant move to the right, which should be quite fun. So yeah, we'll wait and see on that. We'll need to have a good session at each level, basically, to make sure the spawning is how we want it. Artifact outcome sprite. This is an easy one. I can do this. So we go to artifact outcome sprite. Yeah, so if we go to our talent icon, it's just a little simple visual bug, because now we need 2 sprites in order to show an artifact. Okay, so did I already fix this then? Huh. So when we... Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, I see, yeah. So that's for right-clicking it. So... Why don't we have... upgrade icon.artifact. Don't we have that? Oh, upgrade icon script.artifact. No? Then let's write upgrade. No? Upgrade icon script. Huh. Okay, yeah, empty weapon slot with red background, and then display four talent slots, display artifacts. Oof. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, this is not tidy. Yeah, no, Bone Circuit's great. Listen, he's got a lot of experience in the industry, so definitely do listen to what this person says. And also ignore some of it, because, you know, boomers be boomers. But yeah, generally, yes. Respect your elders as well, because they know things. Okay, so yeah, because it's an artifact, we make it a shiny one. So I think I might have already fixed this then. But we should be using, we shouldn't be asking for children of it. We should be, but yeah, I think I already fixed that then. So we will see. If not, then it's going to be really obvious. Oh, it's because the tooltip is sitting above it. Okay. And that means that this should be 3 and this should be 2. This is why this is a very, very bad way to do it. I should have a a component, which I do actually have, called the upgrade icon script. So yeah, this is 3 now. God, yeah. So I like, should I fix this like this, or should I actually fix it properly? Let's fix it like this for now, and if it becomes a problem again, I'll fix it properly. Sweep it under the rug. If you cut, what's that Simpsons Mary Poppins song? If you cut every corner. Yeah, because yeah, I should be going new talent icon equals, or new upgrade icon, and then that would be upgrade icon script new upgrade icon equals this, and then we can just reference. We don't have to go get child. We can just reference it immediately, because get child gets confusing, but we'll solve that if it becomes an issue later. So I'm going to say that that's done. Yeah, not covered by tooltip. That's because that was, so the tooltip would be behind the part of the artifact icon. Okay. Units not immediately. Yeah, so that's a annoying one that I'm not sure about. And then player armor doesn't fully regenerate. And I know that I have issues around, like, how we set up, like basically set the bars so that they are the maximum HP, the maximum armor, and the maximum mana and stuff. And then also, and just separating that from setting the max HP to, like, it's a little bit spaghettified, so we need to sort that out. And get random weapons should be a quick one. And then, of course, stage sprites. And these are things that I can do either this evening if I have insomnia, or tomorrow morning, and maybe I'll end up doing it on stream. And I really like this idea of adding little footprints for the units on some levels. So we would have to have, like, I worry about the performance of that. But basically, if every unit could leave, like, a little I guess it doesn't have to be coloured to the level. It could just be a little transparent oval, a little half-transparent dark oval every time they drop. And we can easily put that on the animation event handler for when they bounce. Same place where we play the bounce sound effect. And just put a little dark oval there, see how it looks. What it should do is hopefully, I don't know, I think it will have a nice effect. Again, that's Bone Circuit's idea. Gonna have to start paying him a wage soon if he keeps on coming up with good ideas to do and help with the coding. But that's not gonna happen. So, and then big one. This is gonna be after holiday UI glow up. So yeah, and then we've got lots of testing and fixing to do because I'm certain there's going to be some artifacts that aren't working properly. And then we finish up the skill trees after doing the UI. Story, early balancing, we test and fix up to a point, and then we can do the orc skill trees and kind of just build the game as we play it, which should be fun. And then at some point, yeah, the bases are big ones. I've got a few design notes, which I kind of want to leave until we get to that point. Yeah. Sacrifice should buff all units. Demon unit that gives mana. Test his ultimate. Yeah, just make sure it's tuned correctly. And I'll do that once I've played through the game a bit more, because these affect balancing. And then yeah, this was an interesting thing I wanted to do to like a mechanic for how we can kind of limit necromancers a bit. And then big run of sound effects, possible optimizations, translations, experimentation, and then we're getting to the end of the game. We're going to be finishing this year, I think, which would be really nice. So, okay, thanks very much for joining. Great turnout today. Thanks everyone. Thanks for all the new subscribers that I've been getting. Really appreciate that. Makes my day every time. And I should be back tomorrow, same time, 1 o'clock. So have a good evening, everyone. Cheers. Bye.